Hello guys, Flamingo here, back with my detailed class guide for the newly revealed Catalyst. So in this video we're going to be looking at the new and exclusive weapon for the Catalyst and the individual weapon skills. We'll then be looking at the healing, utility and elite skills. We'll be looking at how the Catalyst changed the Elementalist base profession mechanics, as well as looking at all of the traits within the specialization and ending the video with a combat demonstration. So if you're interested in playing as a Catalyst, or if you already are and you want to know more, sit tight and we'll get started right now. Okay, so before we get into the meat of it, I just wanted to give you a quick profession overview for the Catalyst. So the Catalyst is the third elite specialization for the Elementalist in Guild Wars 2, and that's unlocked in the End of Dragons expansion. Catalysts have revitalized ancient techniques for channeling elemental forces, with a few modern improvements like their Jade Tech spheres. So yeah, there's quite a few new things to look at for the Catalyst. Not least of all the new Jade Sphere mechanic, which we'll be looking at later in the video, which allows you to summon a Jade Sphere, which creates combo fields and grants boons and stuff like that to allies, depending on your element, which is pretty cool. We got the hammer is the new weapon, which is interesting, an Elementalist with a hammer. It's actually like a mid-ranged weapon rather than a melee weapon, so it's quite interesting. Looking forward to showing you that. And then we've got the augment abilities, which are pretty cool, and they link in with the Jade Sphere ability. So I'm going to be going through all of that in this video. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Alright, so first up I want to have a look at the new weapon skills for the Catalyst. So as I just said, it's the hammer for this elite spec that we'll be getting, which is pretty cool because it gives us 5 new skills, but obviously being the Elementalist and having 4 different elements, we've actually got 20 weapon skills to go through. So I'm going to try and whiz through them as quickly as possible, but still you know, giving you the information and demonstrating each of them. So we're going to start off with fire attunement first. So our first hammer skill, and you'll notice that most of the skills will be 600 range, so it's sort of a mid-range weapon, which is interesting, is Singeing Strike. So singe your foes by unleashing a burst of flames from your hammer. So pretty straightforward. So from mid-range, so you're basically shooting a flame orb out of the hammer, which to be fair I actually think is really awesome, and you're putting stacks of burning on the enemy as well as doing damage. Number 2 is Surging Flames, which has an 8-second cooldown. So sweep your hammer forwards to send flames rushing at your enemy. So it can hit up to 5 targets mid-range, and once again damage and burning. So let's see. You can see this is that sort of a bit like your number 1, but you're sending out a few orbs, so you're going to set quite a few enemies on fire there. Our third one is Flame Wheel. So this is interesting because this actually interacts with the number 3 skill on all of the different attunements. So summon a projectile of fire that circles around you, striking enemies that it passes through. While this projectile is active, it grants you increased outgoing damage. Summoning a circular projectile refreshes the duration of all other circular projectiles. So yeah, so each of the attunements will have its own circular projectile on number 3. You can switch between the attunements and use all of them, so you can have multiple ones going around you. I'll demonstrate it now. This one gives you an extra 5% damage and 5% condition damage while it's active. So let's see, so if I use this, see that will fly around, and then you get Grand Finale, which is redirect any active projectile and shoot it at the enemy basically. So what you can do is you can, you know, switch between a couple of the elements and use the number 3 skills to have those projectiles, and then use number 3 to shoot them. So whatever attunement you're in, your number 3 will shoot out any of the active projectiles that you have. But if you don't do that, it will just, you know, it will have the constant effect on you while it's active, and then also it will be damaging or affecting the enemies or allies around you based on what each one does. This one obviously is burning enemies around you, and I'll show you what each of the other ones do. So just to demonstrate once again, there you go, and then depending on which one you use, you can see it can be burn, invulnerability, weakness or bleeding on up to 5 targets when you shoot at the enemy, dependent on which ones you have. And like I said, you could have multiple at any one time, so that's a pretty cool mechanic as well. So our number 4 is Triple Sear. This has a 20-second cooldown. So sear a path to burn your enemies. So once again, we're going to shoot this from mid-range. Going to hit up to 5 targets. It's going to be a path where it's going to be a path of fire, pun intended, and it's going to do damage and burning per hit. So let's see this. So if I do that, bam, there you go. So it creates 3 things there. So you want to dump it on a bunch of enemies. If it's just a single target, I think you can kind of get it in a sweet spot where all 3 of them actually hit the target in the middle. But that's something that you have to sort of get used to just by using the skill. So it's ground targeted. And then our number 5 is Molten End, which has a 25-second cooldown. So slam your hammer into the ground, damaging nearby enemies. If this strikes a burning enemy, gain offensive boons. So does damage to enemies in a 240 radius, might per burning target, and then fury per burning target as well. So potentially we could try out on this guy, make him burning, and then use our number 5. Bam, there you go. You can see we've got buffs there because he was burning as well. He had a bit of might and a bit of fury. So that's quite a powerful move in number 5 there as well, which is awesome. Moving on to the water attunement, another 5 skills to look at. So, Stream Strike. So this is a chain ability. So we can't actually see all of that because we're in combat, but let's have a look. So then Water Rush, then Chilling Crack. So strike the foe, slam, and then crack the ground, and you can see it's damage, and it's going to chill on the last one there. So obviously, like any chain ability, let that play out, and on the last one, it's going to chill the enemy. Next up, we've got Rain of Blows, which has a 6-second cooldown. So strike your foes repeatedly. Enemies hit by all strikes become chilled. So it's going to hit up to 4. It's going to hit 4 times. If you hit all 4 of them, then you're going to chill the enemy. You can hit up to 3 targets, and this is melee range, so it's not just a mid-range weapon. There is a melee here on the water attunement. So let's try this out. Bam, 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 bam. As you see, if you hit all 4, you're going to put shield on the enemy as well, which is pretty cool. Third one, Icy Coil, which has an 18-second cooldown. So summon a projectile of ice that circles around you, striking enemies that it passes through. While this projectile is active, you take reduced damage from conditions. So this is the one we spoke about. So like the one in the fire attunement, it's going to go around you, but while this one's active, you're going to have minus 5% incoming condition damage. And it's going to inflict vulnerability on enemies, which is pretty cool. And let's have a look now. So boom, there you go. And then you're going to inflict extra invulnerability there. See if you activate it as well. So our fourth one is Crashing Font, and this has a 20-second cooldown. So leap at your target and strike nearby foes. Heal for each target struck. So this is a leap ability which is going to have a mid-range. You can hit up to 5 targets in a radius of 240. Damage wherever you land, obviously where the target is, and it's going to heal you for each target struck. So the more people in that area, the better. So let's demonstrate this. So bam, nice flip, smack there, and it'll be a good healing. So if there's multiple targets here, you're going to get a bunch of healing on yourself. So that's a pretty good skill to whack out when you need it as well. And then our number 5 skill is Cleansing Typhoon, which has a 25-second cooldown. So strike nearby foes, cleansing a condition for each target struck. So this one's going to be a melee ability. It's going to hit up to 3 targets, and yeah, condition removed for each target struck. So the more targets around you, the better. So I'll just demonstrate this now. If this person can stop killing everyone. Bam, there you go. Really cool animation there. Spinning as well, and obviously, yeah, you're going to be removing conditions on yourself as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so next up we've got Air Attunement. So let's try this out. So another 5 skills to look at. So first up we've got Wind Slam, which is slam your foe with a gust of wind. So once again, this is mid-range on the Air Attunement. So I can shoot from here. So a bit like the fire one, but I'm shooting like wind instead of shooting a fire orb. Doesn't look quite as cool, but I can put up with it. And then the second one, oh my god, this sounds good. Hurricane of Pain. Yes, please. 10-second cooldown. Manifest a powerful cyclone at the target location, periodically damaging nearby enemies. So you can do it from 600 range. You drop it down, ground target at a radius of 180. affects up to 3 targets, inflicts vulnerability, and does a bunch of damage. So let's try this out now. This guy gets out of the way. Nice. You see, I'm channeling it here by spinning, and then in the target location creates a, well, it says it's a hurricane of pain, but it's actually sort of more like a twister, isn't it? Like a tornado, so they might have to change that. But tornado of pain probably doesn't have the same ring to it, but that's a really cool ability there as well. Number 3, Crescent Wind, 18-second cooldown. So summon a projectile of air that circles around you, striking enemies that it passes through. While this projectile is active, your chance to critically strike is increased. So this is your you know, the spinny one, for want of a better word, for the air attunement, and this is going to give you 7% critical chance for 5 seconds, and then damage and inflict weakness on nearby enemies, as you can see, and then I can shoot it out to inflict weakness on the enemy there. Boom, there you go. Our number 4 is Windstorm, which has a 20-second cooldown. So release a burst of air to knock down your enemies and propel yourself backwards. So you can do it from mid-range. It's going to knock down the enemies for 2 seconds, and it's going to propel yourself backwards as well. So don't do it with your back to a cliff, for the love of God. And it can affect up to 5 targets. So let's try this out. So bam, there you go. So oh, look, it knocked both of those down and knocked me back. So really good there for getting some distance between you and your targets. And then finally here on the air attunement, we've got Shock Blast, which has a 25-second cooldown. So fire a blast of lightning that explodes when it reaches its destination, stunning nearby foes. So this is pretty cool. So it's going to be from 600 range. It's got a blast radius of 180, hits up to 5 targets, and stuns them for 1.5 seconds. So let's try this out. So let's aim this on top of this guy's head over here, as you can see, and then bam, you see it's going to stun and damage everyone in that area. So that could be a pretty good skill as well for you to utilize. Finally, we have Earth Attunement, and our number 1 on this is Stone Strike. So arc your hammer, creating a ring of jagged rock to damage your enemies. So this is a melee range weapon, and they hit up to 5 targets. So let's try this out. Okay. Alright, so I'm like spinning my hammer around and then creating a spikes coming out the ground. That's a pretty cool animation for a number 1. Okay. Right, so our number 2 is Whirling Stones. It has an 8-second cooldown. So encase your hammer with earthen spikes to deliver a powerful blow. So 240 range radius, so you've got to be pretty close to the enemies. As it's going to affect everyone around you up to 5 targets. It's going to do damage, and it's going to do bleeding per hit as well. So let's try this out. So as you can see, whirring around, stacks of bleeding, doing damage to all the enemies in the radius around you. That's awesome. Number 3, so our spinny ability on the Earth attunement. So Rocky Loop, which has an 18-second cooldown. Summon a projectile of earth that circles around you, striking enemies that it passes through. While this projectile is active, you take reduced damage from strikes. Okay, so yeah, so this one's going to give you reduced incoming strike damage. It's going to bleed targets around you, and yeah, so let's try this out now. So we've got it here, and then yeah, we're going to shoot this out at the enemy to cause bleeding as well. 4th one on the Earth attunement is Immutable Stone, and this has a 20-second cooldown. So block the next incoming attack. If you block an attack, gain an aura based on your current attunement. Okay, so if you block an attack, so gain an aura based on your current attunement. Although this is an Earth attunement skill, so surely you're going to be an Earth attunement. Okay, maybe if you change, I suppose. In the meantime, it will go with it, but seems a bit strange. So yeah, if you're in Fire attunement, you get Fire Aura, which is enveloped in a fiery shield that burns foes. Grants might each time you are struck. Frost Aura is minus 10% incoming damage. Shocking Aura, stun nearby attacking foes with an electric shock. Magnetic Aura, reflect projectiles with magnetic energy. So let's see. Obviously, it only works if you block an incoming attack. These guys aren't attacking me, so I'm not going to probably show that off. But do try that out, because that might be pretty cool. And then finally we've got Ground Pound, which has a 30-second cooldown. So smash your hammer into the ground to bleed and immobilize your enemies. Sounds simple enough. It's a radius of 240 rounds. You're going to hit up to 5 targets, bleed and immobilize. So let's get this guy over here as my victim, and then I'll smash down on the ground. You can see it immobilizes the enemies nearby up to 5 targets and bleeds them as well. Whew, so that is all 20 new weapon skills on the hammer. I think there's some really cool ones in there actually. Who doesn't want to spin around with a hammer and create a whirlwind? So I'm pretty happy with that. So next thing we're going to have a look at is the new and exclusive healing skill for the Catalyst. Alright, so next up is the new healing skill for the Catalyst. And this is our first look at the new augment abilities. So this is called Soothing Water and has a 25-second cooldown. So regenerate health over time. If this is cast in range of your water sphere, cleanse a condition with each pulse. So I'll be going into more detail on the sphere in the profession mechanics part, but it's your F5 ability here. So if cast in range of there, you're going to also cleanse a condition with each pulse, and that's 5 pulses, 1 every second. So if not, then it's just going to regenerate some health over time. So it's not a chunk kill, so do bear that in mind. If you want one of them, don't use the skill, but it will regenerate health over time, as we can demonstrate here. Lovely. And then like I said, if you've got your water sphere active, then it's actually going to have a better effect as well. So do bear that in mind when you're using it. You're sort of going to want to pre-plan that, so you use it at the correct time to have the maximum effect and cleanse those conditions as well. So yeah, that's pretty simple. That's the new healing ability. So the next thing we're going to look at are the new utility skills. Alright, so now we're looking at the utility skills, and we have an augment here, which we can see a new line of them there, and one of them is for each of the elements, as you can see, earth, air, water and fire. So similar to the augment ability, which is the healing skill, they are going to have a greater effect when interacting with our sphere. So once again, that's something to plan, and you only really want to take the augments of the achievements you normally use, because that's going to be the spheres that you're putting down. So first up, we've got Fortified Earth, which has a 30-second cooldown. So block attacks, and if this is cast within range of your Earth sphere, gain barrier if the channel completes successfully. So for 3 seconds you're going to block attacks, and yeah, if it's near your Earth sphere, you're going to gain barrier as well. So let's just demonstrate this. So boom, there you go. Really cool animation there with a nice stone shield, which is really cool. Let me just swap that out for our fire sphere. So next up we've got Invigorating Air, which has a 30-second cooldown. So gain increased endurance, regeneration, and if this is cast within range of your air sphere, also gain super speed. So once again, lasts for 5 seconds, and you're going to get increased endurance regeneration. So this is going to come back so you can roll around quicker. So this is one based on movement, which kind of links in with the air, obviously, and yet you gain super speed as well if you're near your air sphere, so do think about that. They also break stun as well. I think the others do as well. Oh no, they don't actually. No, it's just this one. So it breaks stun, so just bear that in mind as well. And as we can see, boom, there you go. So you don't have to channel this one, but while it's active, you're going to have that increased endurance regen, allowing you to bounce around a bit quicker, which is pretty awesome. Next up, we've got Shattering Ice, which has a 20-second cooldown. So your successful attacks will trigger an additional strike on nearby enemies, and that will last for 5 seconds. If this is cast within range of your water sphere, additional strikes also apply chilled. So whenever you hit an enemy, then you're going to hit an additional strike, but also chilled as well if you're near your water sphere, so bear that in mind. Let me just demonstrate this, attacking an enemy. This guy, so use that and then bam, nice. As you can see, an additional strike, no shield because we're not near our water sphere, but it could be worse. And then finally we've got Relentless Fire, which has a 25-second cooldown. So your attacks and conditions deal increased damage. If this is cast within range of your fire sphere, your attacks are also unblockable. Okay, so as you can see, 15% extra damage there, and then you get unblockable as well. This lasts for 5 seconds if you're near your fire sphere, but let's just demonstrate it normally. We use that, and then bam, additional damage. So if you're using this for like a power build, you're probably going to want to utilize that because it's going to link with your fire attunement, which is probably going to be your main one anyway. So that's all of the utility skills for the Catalyst. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the new and exclusive elite skill. Alright, so now I want to have a look at the elite skill for the Catalyst. So this is our elite augment ability, and it's called Elemental Celerity, and it's got a 90-second cooldown. So your strikes reduce the cooldown of your equipped weapon skills. If this is activated in range of your sphere, gain a boon based on the current element. Okay, so yeah, effectively, whilst you're using your weapons, obviously a lot of these skills will be on cooldown. You use your elite skill here, and it's going to mean that for the 8 seconds that this lasts, whenever you strike an enemy, the cooldown of your weapon skills will reduce, so you'll be able to use these more often, meaning you can do more damage and put more effects on the enemy, so it's going to buff you quite well there. And then also, with all these augment abilities, is the added bonus of being near your sphere, which in this situation, depending on which element you are attuned to, you'll get a different buff. If it's fire, then you'll get the might buff. If it's water, you'll get the vigor buff. If it's air, then you'll get the fury buff. And if it's earth, then you'll get the protection buff. So it looks like recharge time reduced by 1 second for each time you hit an enemy. Like I said, lasts for 8 seconds. I think there's an interval of 1 second. Probably you can only reduce it every 1 second. So let's demonstrate this, shall we? So if I go over here, I start using some of my weapon abilities to get them on cooldown and whatnot, and then we can try out this elite. So I use this now, and you can see as I'm hitting them, you can see down here my cooldowns. Each time I'm hitting them, there's another extra second being knocked off the cooldowns, meaning I'm going to be able to use them quicker, which is pretty awesome there. So that's the elite skill. Obviously, like I said, if it's near your sphere, then it's going to have those added effects as well, put buffs on yourself, meaning the hits that you're doing are going to be even more powerful. So it's a bit of a double whammy. You'll be able to hit enemies, you'll be able to use the skills more often, and also you'll be getting buffed at the same time as long as you use it near your sphere. So that's a pretty cool elite skill there that you can use. 90-second cooldown's a bit steep, to be fair, but you know, potentially you can use that in your build and it could be quite effective. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the profession mechanics. Alright, so now I want to talk about the unique profession mechanics for the Catalyst. So I wouldn't say it is a huge change on the base Elementalist like some of the other specs are. But it is a fair difference, and there's a couple new things to learn. So obviously we've got the new hammer, which has given us 20 new weapon skills, so that's sort of the biggest part of this elite spec. And then you've got the augment abilities here, which link in with the Jade Sphere, which is obviously the main thing we're going to go through now. So Jade Sphere is your F5 ability here. And you actually have, it's a bit subtle, but you've got this little energy bar here, which goes up to 30. And that is basically going to fill up as you're in combat. So whenever you strike an enemy, your energy bar is going to be filling up. And however much energy you've got in that bar, your Jade Sphere will basically last longer. So let's have a look. So deploy Jade Sphere. So it has a 20-second cooldown, and it summons your Jade Sphere, creating a combo field and granting boons to allies in its radius based on your active attunement. So yeah, you can place it down on the ground. Like I said, it will last a certain amount of time depending on how much energy you've got. So make sure you let this build up. As soon as you build this up full, you're going to want to stick this down on the ground. So depending on what attunement you're in, it's going to have a different effect. So as you can see, it's going to do a little bit of damage to enemies inside the radius, but it's going to grant might to you and your allies as long as they're in there up to 5 targets, and it drains 3 energy per second, so 30 energy there. So if you've got full energy when you use it, it will last for 10 seconds and it's a radius of 240. So let's have a look at each individual attunement. So like I said, it gives you the might buff when you're in fire attunement. In water attunement, you get the so everyone else is the same, I believe. Yeah, everyone else looks like it's the same, but you get the resolution buff, which means incoming condition damage is decreased. In air attunement, you get the quickness buff, which means skills and actions are faster, so that's a powerful one there as well. And then finally in earth attunement, you get the protection buff, which is minus 33% incoming damage. I didn't check if all the energy drain was the same. Energy drain per second is 3 on that one. Yeah, looks like they're all, yeah, so energy drain per second is 3. So yeah, as long as if you got full energy, it's going to last for 10 seconds because it's 3 energy drain per second. So bear that in mind. If you had 10 energy, it's only going to last for just over 3 seconds. So yeah, so you're going to want to do that. And like I said, as long as you're in combat, whenever you strike an enemy, you're going to be gaining that energy. So I suppose we'll do a little demonstration for you on this real quick, and maybe we can use an augment ability which will actually interact with it. Like we said, creates a combo field and as well, and it obviously increases all of these augment abilities effects like quite quite drastically. So as we can see, look, as we're striking an enemy here, looks like you gain 1 every time you strike an enemy. So after 30 hits, shouldn't take too long, you'll have full energy. So let's just let this build up to 30. Shouldn't take long. Okay, there you go. So now I'm going to place that down here. Boom, there you go. As you can see, it's going all these augment abilities there, so you get the extra effect when you're within it. And obviously I've got the might buff on myself as well, which is really awesome. So that's what you can do then. You can place that down, and obviously when you go between the elements, it's going to be a different sphere for each one, as you'd expect with the Elementalist, each having their own effects. So whatever your priorities are on your build, then that'll be the one. You know, if you're mainly a support build, obviously you're going to be looking at the water attunement, the more defensive buffs on the earth attunement, and then higher damage abilities on the air and fire attunement, as you're probably used to by now if you play the Elementalist. So yeah, that's all of the new professional mechanics. Like I said, the new weapon and all the new weapon skills and things that go into that are sort of the main thing. And then you've got your Jade Sphere, which is also something that you can do, which interacts with all of your augment abilities as well. So yeah, so that's everything for the professional mechanics. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the traits and specialization. Alright, so now I'm going to have a look at the specialization for the Catalyst, and then we're going to have a look at the individual traits to see how that can improve your build even more. So the Catalyst is obviously an elite specialization, so it needs to go in your 3rd slot, and just by having it on here you'll get the hammer proficiency, which means that you can wield hammers, and obviously we've already been through that, all of the 20 new weapon skills you'll get for that. The first passive here just basically reinforces some of the things we've already been through. So depth of elements. So build up elemental energy when you strike foes, and energy is consumed to imbue the Jade Sphere with different elements, creating combo fields and granting boons to allies in the area. And you also gain access to augments. So that's obviously something we've already been through. So our first choice that we have on the traits is Hardened Auras, which is damage reduction is increased when you gain an aura. So damage reduction per stack, 2%. Hardened aura, incoming damage is reduced, maximum stacks 5. So whenever you gain an aura, then you're just going to get a bit of damage reduction. Vicious Empowerment, so gain elemental empowerment and might when you disable or immobilize a foe. So if you use disable or immobilize on a foe, then you're going to get elemental empowerment, which means you get plus 2% to all stats, and then there's might as well. Energized Element, so gain energy and fury when you switch attunements. So whenever you switch in between your F1 to F4 here, then you're going to be gaining energy and fury. So an energy gain of 2, which will help towards your Jade Sphere, and then fury to increase your critical hit chance. Next passive is Elemental Empowerment. So gain Elemental Empowerment while in combat. So I think we had that on the last one. So Elemental Empowerment is 3% to all stats. So it's 1% per stack, and it's 3 stacks. That lasts for 15 seconds. So whenever you're in combat, it's got a cooldown 15 seconds. So basically, whenever you're in combat, you're going to have that. Stacks maximum up to 10 times. Next choice, we've got Empowering Auras. So gain increased outgoing damage when you gain an aura. So just like that last one over here, but this one is more damage. So extra 2% damage and 2% condition damage stacks up to 5 times when you gain an aura. Evasive Empowerment. So gain elemental empowerment and vigor when evading an attack. So whenever you're rolling around and evading, you're going to get another stack, or another 2 stacks I think, of elemental empowerment. Obviously there seems a theme here, just adding to all your stats there, which is good. Just a nice buff. And then we've got Spectacular Sphere. So your Jade Sphere grants a boon to nearby allies based on your current attunement when activated. So this is just going to be an extra boon from your Jade Sphere. So obviously if you're in fire attunement, you and your allies are going to get might buff. Air, it's going to be fury. Water, it's going to be vigor. And earth, it's going to be resistance. And that can affect up to 5 allies in a radius of 240 when you activate your Jade Sphere. Final passive is Elemental Epitome. So gain an aura based on your current attunement when you combo. Gaining an aura grants you elemental empowerment. So whenever you're using those combo abilities, in the you're going to get an aura, which fire aura, I think we already went into this before, but fire aura is fire shield that burns foes, frost auras minus incoming damage, shocking aura stuns nearby attacking foes with electric shock, magnetic aura reflects projectiles with magnetic energy. So as you can see, it tells you there, it depends on which attunement you have. So here our choices are Staunch Auras, which is gain stability when you gain an aura. So stability cannot be knocked down, pushed back, pulled, blah blah blah. Empowered Empowerment. While at maximum stacks of elemental empowerment, its effectiveness is increased. So maximum stacks is 10. So whenever you're got a maximum of 10 stacks, then you'll get a 100% increase to the effectiveness of elemental empowerment. So that just further adds on to all those buffs you can have on yourself, which is good. And finally we have Sphere Specialist. So boons applied by your Jade Sphere have increased duration. So an extra 50% duration to any of the boons by your Jade Sphere, which I think we had like here. That's going to give you more boons. So that and that would link together and mean that you'll have even more duration on those boons as well. Okay, so that's all of the individual traits on the Catalyst specialization, and that covers pretty much everything we need to talk about today for the Catalyst. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with a combat demonstration where I'll show off all of these cool new abilities and just see how they work in practice. Yeah, I'll leave you to watch that. But thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe to be kept up to date, and I will see you later.
Waves engulf me! Everything missed.